All right, so we're going to jump right on into this. First of all, good afternoon. It's been a long day, but a productive day. So how's everybody feeling? Good. Just a real quick kind of show of hands, just to kind of get a feel for the individuals that are in the audience. How many of you are representing community colleges? Okay. How about four-year institutions? Okay. And then as far as roles, how many of you have direct responsibility for basic needs in some shape, form, fashion? Okay. How many faculty members? A couple, okay. How about any student success officers or responsibility for student success? Okay, a smaller group. Let's see, what else? Any other operational areas? Finance, anything else, any other administrative area that wasn't captured? How about senior level execs like VPs, deans, provost presidents? Okay, good. That's helpful. So my name is Danifu Elston. I was introduced a little earlier. My information is up here. I always spell out my name phonetically. My mama's name was Sandra. My daddy's name was Willie, in case you were interested. And as we were introduced, I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Nia Heidel. She'll introduce herself and talk shortly. We also have another colleague's name up here. Her name is Missy Fairfax. She is actually our strategy director that is responsible for New Jersey. She came down with a bug, and you know what? I do not want anybody bringing cooties into the room, so I'm sure all of you appreciate not having somebody to bring all that in. So a couple of other very quick questions. How many of you have had some kind of familiarity with Complete College America before today? A small group, good. That gives me a good starting point of where we are. Well, this is what this conversation is designed to do. And I'm gonna move around a little bit because what I realized when I was at the back of the room is that some of you are behind pillars and are having a little trouble seeing, so I might just kind of flow back and forth and Nia will do the same. But the New Jersey joined the Complete College America Alliance a couple of months back. And so we knew that it's always important to come out and have some conversations about what is this thing that our governor signed us up for. And having been an institutional practitioner for 20 plus years, a lot of times I was like, okay, so what does this mean for my work? What did I get signed up for? What do I have to do? I already got too much on the table. I mean, initiative fatigue is real. And so what we wanted to do is spend a couple of minutes, and we're going to speed through this, but we're going to try to give you as much information about, one, who is Complete College America, who are we, what do we do, why we do it, what are the strategies, and what it can mean for assistance for your campuses, if that makes sense. That sound like a plan? All right, so I'll ask one last question before I continue on. How many of you are constantly struggling with how do I get money to pay for these big ideas and projects that come up? All right, most of the room. That's exactly what we figured out. So we got some answers for that. So listen up. We'll kind of refer you to a number of different things that Complete College America does that moves in that direction. All right, so housekeeping, logistical piece, really quick. We didn't put up a QR code, but if you go to completecollege.org, there is a mobile-enabled site. You can set up an easy profile. It doesn't take much. But all the things we're going to talk about, they're there. We're also going to share this slide deck with you so that you have access to it. So there's a lot of information, a lot of helpful tools, resources, and a community of practice around different things that you're working on. All right, so who we are, real simple. Name says it all. Our goal is to ensure that more students graduate from college. And when we say college, what we're talking about are credentials of purpose and value. So I know it's mostly community colleges and four-year institutions in the room, but also working with technical colleges. So it could be certificate programs, two-year degree, four-year degrees, et cetera. And we basically try to amplify the best things that are out there in the field and figure out how we scale them, not just at a singular institution with a singular program, but across an entire state, across an entire region, across the country. So that's who we are, that's what we do, and we think a lot about structural reforms. So for us, this conversation is about how do you take the mirror and not have a long conversation drawn out about, you know, our students have this, and this. We know that. But when they show up at our doorstep, they are expecting us to serve them and serve them well. And so these conversations for us is about how do we turn the mirror on ourselves and ensure that all the things that these students expect, they are in place. So that's the work. So we use this term institutional performance gaps. You will rarely hear us talking about equity gaps because the gaps really aren't about the students. The gaps are about the things that institutions should be doing to better serve the students. All right, and so New Jersey, the 50th member of the Complete College America Alliance. When our founder started our organization almost 15 years ago, the goal was to get maybe 10 governors to commit to a college completion agenda. Now we've got almost the entire map of the United States filled up. And I'll talk to you, and Nia will talk to you a little bit about what we're seeing from those states, what the success has been around there. So this is the exciting work, and I would be remiss if I did not just send a special thanks to Governor Murphy, as well as far as Brian Bridges, because both of them were really instrumental in making this happen, and I think it's going to be a benefit to many individuals and institutions in this room. All right, that's who we are. Got through that. Let me tell you, that's the who we are. Let me talk to you about the why. The why for me in this work is very much rooted in these pictures up here. I'm not going to put a bunch of words up there. I'm originally from Compton, California. My parents went to college, but they were not going to let me just sit on their couch for the rest of my life after high school. I had to do something. So I went to a community college for a hot second. Then I went to a large research institution, felt completely overwhelmed, ended up transferring to a small historically black college, Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. And while I was at Clark Atlanta, I actually had to take some classes at a local community college because private school was expensive, and I was trying to figure out how to kind of pull it all together. I share that with you because this is the story of our students. You know, they've come up with names for these students now. They call them swirlers and everything else. For me, I remember getting to Clark Atlanta University, going to one of those convocation type events at the very beginning of the year during orientation, and I thought it was going to be one of those look to your left, look to your right kind of conversations. Y'all know that. You've seen it in the movies, right? All right. But as opposed to saying look to your left, look to your right, one of these people won't be here, the person said, look to your left, look to your right. It is your responsibility to ensure that every single person next to you, behind you, in front of you, finishes and walks across that stage with you. To me, that is the college completion agenda. That's the work that's in front of us, and that's why we're talking about basic needs, which is a component of this larger overarching student success effort. The other why for me is this picture. It's an old picture, but these are my children. My son at the time was almost like 6 years old. He would ask his college-age babysitters whether they were taking 15 credits or not. And my daughter, who is now 11 years old, in this picture, she would not smile for anything. We took hundreds of pictures. If you can't see it, I'm just going to give you the quick zoom in. You know what I'm saying? That is the look of a student that is not on a guided pathway, okay? That is a student who you're saying, you need to get to class on time, and the class is at 8 a.m., and they're like, but the bus don't arrive to 8:15. You know what I'm saying? Some real basic needs conversations. But I say that in jest because, like I said earlier, this is not just about my children. This is about all of our students. So, now that you know why we do what we do, many of the things that you have already done and have been working on, many of them have been kind of birthed out of Complete College America's work. And just up here are a number of headlines. We were responsible for some of the things like developmental education reform. How many of you have like a 15 to finish or a finish on time campaign? Okay, that's good to know because that's something we need to get moving. So 15 to finish, that was kind of created by some of our alliance members. And so we've been kind of constantly working with those institutions around what can we do to structurally be better at student success, and with a very intentional lens around those institutions that have been left behind in the movement. We're not talking about the highly selective institutions. We're talking about what's happening for those open access institutions, those community colleges, those rural students, those urban regional institutions. And so that's the work in front of us. Now, let's jump into what the numbers really look like at a national level. Because so frequently we talk about our institutions, we talk about our state. Let me fly a little higher. Nationally, on-time graduation, 15% of two-year associate degree granting institutions, 15% of students finish on time, and about 44% at four-year institutions. Now that four-year number is a little misleading because if you disaggregate highly selective institutions, that number looks a little lower when you're talking about regional institutions, et cetera. Now, when you talk about on time, like when you look at IPED's numbers, we're not talking about 150% graduation time, 6 years or 3 years. We're talking about somebody's grandmama dropped them off and they're expecting to come back to a graduation in 4 years. And so this is the real number. And these are real challenges and real big numbers. I say this to you and I share these numbers with you because everybody's numbers across the state look the same. This is not to shame New Jersey. It is to let you know that when we go to Mississippi, Arkansas, Montana, and other places, all the numbers look the same. Typically, people will say, but you don't understand my state. We don't, and we are learning, but the reality is the numbers tend to look like this. Let's show you a couple more big ones. This one right here, excess credits. At a two-year degree, on average, a student who graduates from a community college graduates with 82 credit hours when it should take them 60. 20 plus extra credit hours, and we know why. There are a lot of reasons, but 20 extra credit hours is a lot of money and a lot of extra time. Same thing four-year institutions, you get it. Time to degree. On average, two-year institutions, it takes you 3.5 years. Four-year institutions, you know, bachelor's, it says 4.1 years. Once again, when you disaggregate across institutions, it's probably closer to 5 years for institutions that are a little more open access. And then when we look at New Jersey, you know your own numbers, but like I said, the numbers look very similar. 12%, 51% in comparison to nationally 17% on the two-year side and 40%. So you're doing a little better at the 4 years, but once again, aggregated. And then you've probably seen these numbers around some of the racial dynamics as well. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this particular data, but just to tell you that the data should drive our change. And that's why I've been so impressed with all of the conversations about the basic needs discussions and the data, because you have to know the information in order to make it happen. All right, so the work that we're going to continue to do and the work that we've been doing is really around these things right here. Making sure that we have strategic initiatives, big projects that Nia is going to talk about. We provide a number of public insights and great publications that will lay out everything to you in a very plain spoken way. So literally yesterday, we just launched a publication about artificial intelligence and student success. Not a big, long, lengthy kind of journal article, but something where you can say, what am I supposed to do with this AI conversation? And we're also a network of change agents. And the reason why this is really important is because there are so many individuals like yourselves who are doing really great work. One of the things we do really well is we take great people, great projects, put them on a stage, amplify them, and find ways for them and their institution to get more dollars and resources to advance the work that you want to do. How many of you heard the story of Georgia State and all the things that they've done? Okay, if not great story, most of the time it's by doing that. Having people on stages where they can tell their own story. Before I turn the mic over to my colleague Nia, people ask broadly, what is the work that you do? It's really in three core buckets for us: policy, perspectives, and practice. Policies, examples right here. Complete College Georgia increased on-time graduation rates significantly. Perspectives, I already told you about 15 to finish. Created by the University of Hawaii after coming to a Complete College America event. Now it's a national kind of strategy where every institution should have an on-time degree completion campaign. And then you've got things like perspectives and practice, like right here, the CUNY ASAP program. We basically identified something that was happening at one campus, blew it up out the water, shared it with a bunch of states, and now it's a national initiative. And so all of our work is about elimination of institutional performance gaps. You know, we talk all the time about there are also a lot of people who got left behind, and there is no middle ground for missing out on so many students when we talk about equitable outcomes. And so when we think about the money that's spent, it kind of is equivalent of underfunding in different communities. So you might have a library in a well-resourced area that looks like this. Under-resourced area looks like that. When you start off with that, That's one thing. But even if a state gave you more money, what happens is that resource library now has computers. That other library now just has a few more books. You give them a little bit more money, what happens? Now that resource library is basically completely digitized, where the under-resourced institution is basically where they started multiple years back. Those are the conversations, the policy conversations we have with institutions and with states. And people might ask, all right, so why should I do this? The states that have been integrally a part of the CCA Alliance have been the biggest gainers in college completion across the country. And that's why we're excited to work with New Jersey. And you can see right here, 10% increases in college completion, a number of other things that we'll share with you. But with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Nia Heidel, and she's going to get into a little bit more depth about some of the strategies, but specifically, what are the next steps in how your institutions can work with Complete College America through your state. So Nia, here you go.
Hi, everyone. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to try and walk back and forth like Donnie Fu did. Okay, so basically the way we organize our work is around these 4 pillars. And we have 18 strategies. All the strategies are evidence-based and data supported. So what we did was we're looking at how do students experience college, like what is the student journey, and what are those touch points and opportunities that we might have to be able to really improve student success. And we have a lot of information that really digs into them, but for purposes of time, just quickly, purpose. Do they know why they're here? Do we help them create a plan? Is it clearly articulated? Structure. Do we have guardrails in place to make sure that if students want to graduate, which they do because they showed up, right? So structures in place that will help them facilitate their student success and get through their programs in a positive way and quickly. Momentum. How do we help them gain some steam? How are we looking at prior learning experience or different types of like dual enrollment, but what have they been involved with before, and how do we incorporate those things into their academic programs? And then support, because what we know is if we don't provide opportunities for real advising, so advising is not registration, right? And so how do we provide opportunities for real advising? We look at their lives to make sure that we're incorporating all those things into their strategies, and then of course basic needs support. So if we're not supporting them at that fundamental level, it doesn't matter if all those other things in place, it's not gonna be successful for the students. So today we're gonna really focus on the basic needs support because of course that's why everybody's here. But the reason why I want to show you the other slides is because it's really important for us not to isolate basic needs support as its own thing. It needs to really be integrated in all the other things that we're having, the conversations we're having. So when we're planning academic advising, we should be thinking about basic needs support. Is it always 9 to 5, Monday through Friday in an office? Or can it be virtual? Or can it be on the weekends? Or all these different types of things. So although this is one of our strategies, I really want us to conceptualize this as a through approach. So No Middle Ground is a publication that we did that's on our website that really talks about how do you make sure that when you're implementing student success strategies that you have an equitable lens throughout everything you're doing, whether that's the approach, the training, the data analysis, but really making sure. So these are some things that as we're thinking about basic needs, and they talked about this throughout the day, but are we making sure faculty and staff are trained? Are we making sure that we know what students need? So are we asking them, or are we just looking at the data, right? And then how are we making sure that we are implementing practices and services that meet different students in different ways where they need them? So y'all saw all of this earlier. And the thing that I think is really important about this, all the strategies is the fact that we cannot boil the ocean. So there are all these things that we want to be able to do, but we have to really think about what do we have the resources to do at the moment, but then what are our colleagues doing across the state, across the nation? So this is one of the big benefits that I find from being in the Alliance, and I live in Louisiana, and thinking about, like in other states like mine who are maybe struggling with some of the same issues that we're struggling with in different capacities, what are they already doing? And what CCA I think has done a really good job at, and it's not because I work for CCA, because I said this before, but I do work for CCA, And what we find is like a real benefit is the ability to just take the learnings that we have from across the state, the resources, the people, and put people together. And so with some of the projects that we've had, the benefit really has been that we just being able to share the learnings and tools that already exist, because there really are very few new ideas, right? Just maybe new ways to do things. But we don't have to start from scratch. And so the Alliance allows us the opportunity to be able to share some of those things. And how can you work with us, which is what we really want to really focus on, is that there are opportunities for partnership, not just like with CCA and with our other institutions across the Alliance, but your data review. So how are you looking at your data? But not just for basic needs, but how are we connecting this and drawing a line to student success and college completion? So what are those connection points? And then what does our structure look like? So your structure for some of these services, your processes, your policies, and the importance of integrating these things so that they are supporting one another. And these are some of the things that we really partner with institutions and university systems with working through and being able to design. So this is just an example of an institution, and so they kind of mapped out which would be one of the first things to do, right? To map out what are the resources you have on campus. But then the next question that we'll work with them on is, okay, so how are you partnering with community agencies? Because you don't want necessarily or have the resources on your campus to address all of these things. Who's missing? Who do we include? Is this the way the student would experience these resources? Are we making it clear? Have we actually walked the student's journey? How many times do they have to tell someone that they are housing insecure before they get services? Can we make sure that only happens one time? Do we have policies that make it easy for students to overcome some of the barriers that they are experiencing? Or is everything, it's like an obstacle course, right, in order for them to be able to get the services and support they need? So that's the next part that we work with our institutions to do. So how can you partner with us, and what are some of the advantages of working with CCA and our Alliance? So we are a philanthropic, we are a nonprofit, and so we're philanthropically funded, but we partner with a lot of agencies to be able to implement large-scale projects around student success strategies. So being able to partner with us on some of these activities. And we have, as an organization, decided to focus on institutions who have been historically excluded, who have large representations in their student population of students who are Black, Indigenous, Latinx, students of color, first-generation students, or students from under-resourced communities. And so if that is your population, these are institutions that we have really prioritized and making sure that we're providing support for them. So I'm going to tell you about two projects that we have. One is with 22, is funded by Lumina and Casey Foundation, and this one has a significant basic needs support focus, but we have identified 22 predominantly Black and historically Black community colleges across 8 states, and we've been working with them for 2 years to implement pathways work, academic maps, to workforce programs, but also to develop guidebooks for their institutions on how to identify and map out student needs in the community because of limited resources, right? So and we did a national call out to get institutions and states to participate. So this will be something now that New Jersey is in the Alliance. You all would be able to apply for one of these projects. These are a number of our institutions. They're absolutely great. This is one of my favorite projects. Don't tell anybody. And this is another one that we have. You may have heard that last year the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation dedicated $100 million for a post-secondary project focused on institutional transformation, which was the largest investment they've ever done in this. And so we did an RFP to all of our Alliance members, and we picked 11 states to participate. So for those 11 states, for 5 years, we're working with them on developing data data-informed practices, building data capacity on our campuses, and we have 11 different strategies. And so we are providing them with technical assistance and support and coming to their campuses and convening them, which is another thing that oftentimes institutions and university systems don't have resources to do, to bring people together from across the state, to be able to talk about the work that they're doing, the challenges that they're having, and to organize as a group on how do they address some of the problems that they've been having. So this project has just kicked off. We have 71 institutions who are already starting, and this has been a very it's a very informative and enlightening process too, because what we are finding is that rural institutions in Maine might have something that's very similar, a need as a rural institution in Kentucky. But you might not think that because it's Maine and Kentucky, right? And so again, these are the types of projects that we're partnering with institutions on and with states on as members of the Alliance. So some of the things that we also do, we have data days, and we do a good job at convening people. We're on the road a lot, our team, and just bringing people together to have these conversations and to share. So we have all these different things, data, we go to the Hill, we don't lobby, but we have conversations around what's important as it relates to student success. And what do we need our legislators to understand about what the real experience is for our students in order for them to be able to legislate. We testify at different things. We do policy audits around all different types of student success, financial aid, all kinds of things, just to make sure that as we're looking at the policies that we have, that they're really supporting the goals that we have. And then how do you connect with us? So what we would really like, would make us very happy is that if you log onto our website and you actually start to utilize the tools that we have, and then give us feedback. If there's something there that you think, okay, this would be very helpful for us if we were able to use this, or have you thought about this, or this is a problem that we're having in our state or our region around this specific strategy. Those are things that we want to know, because our goal is to identify ways to address systems change and to take some of these challenges that you're having, figure out a solution, and then share them nationally to all of our partners. So I think when I think about this in general, what I think the most important thing for us and for the team that I work with, I lead the team, the strategy team that comes out and works with the institutions and works at the system level to really figure out what's going on in your campus. What do your staff need? What does your staff need? What are you trying to accomplish? What do your students need? What we want you to know is that we have been college practitioners. Everybody on the team has worked on a college campus. We understand how difficult it is. We understand what the students are experiencing. And we want to help you figure out how to make it better for your students. And that looks very different on every campus, but it also looks quite the same, right? And so the important takeaway from me to you is that we're a partner here for you, but we can't help you if you don't let us know what it is that you need. And we want to really work with you to be able to amplify all the great things that you're doing. You all have some amazing things that I heard just today in conversations. And we want to help tell that story and share that with our other Alliance members. So we look forward to really working with you and learning more about what's happening in New Jersey, and then also supporting you in whatever it is that you're needing to do to accomplish your student success goals.